Husband safe. Carolina didn't know when the pain began, but one day she bit into a cracker and it arrived like a needle through her jaw. She avoided that side of her mouth for weeks in hopes that it might disappear on its own, but when it didn't, she had no choice. At the dentist, the receptionist looked like she wished Carolina wasn't there, and Carolina wanted to say she wished she wasn't either, but instead she took the form handed to her and sat down. The hygienist was friendlier. She had braces that Carolina could see in detail when she peered over her mouth, shiny purple stars above a gaping black hole. While she tapped Carolina's tooth and told her to bite down on a waxy strip, she talked about her infant, whose photo Carolina had noticed tacked to a corkboard. "She's easy enough that my husband can handle her," the hygienist continued, sucking saliva with a translucent tube. The way she talked about the baby reminded Carolina of the way that some people talked about horses. "Husband safe," they would say, advertising an animal that was predictable and sane. "Do you have children?" the hygienist asked. Carolina couldn't speak because a hand was in her mouth. "I'll be right back," she said, without waiting for Carolina's answer. Around the same time her tooth began to hurt, Carolina had moved out of the house and into a motel room that smelled of takeout and bleach, although she wasn't sure she could call it a move. Everything in her life was still at the house, including her husband and her child. The room was closer to where she worked at the riding stables as an assistant trainer. Once, she brought her daughter out and strapped her to one of the husband-safe horses. She cried the whole time, and eventually Carolina's husband had to come ferry the child from the saddle. Her neighbors at the motel were a sex worker and a painter. The sex worker made home movies that Carolina could hear through the walls. "It's nice giving my clients what they need," she said to Carolina once, and Carolina wanted to ask how she knew. She only caught a glimpse of the painter's work when he was coming back from a grocery run. Violent slashes across green canvases. Carolina liked him, though they never spoke. When the dentist entered, she apologized for the wait. "You wouldn't believe the trouble people get themselves into," she said, but Carolina believed she could. Once, she had forgotten her daughter in the car on the way to pick up her prescription. The manager of the drugstore saw the baby crying on his way in and made an announcement on the intercom, his voice reminding Carolina of her childhood teacher, scolding her for wearing her mud-caked boots to class. Carolina ran back to the car without picking up what she had come for, the eyes of the fellow store patrons following her all the way home. She didn't tell her husband. It wasn't the worst thing she had done. "Can you tell me which part hurts?" the dentist said, tapping the tooth with her metal prod. Carolina wished she could see inside her own mouth, could pinpoint the pain when she crunched down, but she couldn't. It was everywhere and nowhere. "I'm sorry," she said. She had gotten used to apologizing. It wasn't just people. Horses got into trouble too. Last week, one of the horses caught his leg in a fence. It was the husband-safe horse, and Carolina stroked the velvety hairs on his nose all the way to the vet. Once, a father had asked Carolina what they did with the horses when they died. "I imagine they're hard to move," the man said as the child whose lessons she had led ran into her arms. Carolina was inside her car now, tears wetting her jeans. She didn't know how long she had been there when she heard a tap. The first thing she saw were the braces, then a mouth fogging the glass. She rolled her window down. "You forgot this," the hygienist said as she handed Carolina's keys through the window. The hygienist squatted to Carolina's level. Her eyes were warm and brown and soft, and Carolina recognized something in them, an animal longing. "It'll get better," she said. "You'll see. The body is healing. You'll be fixed right up."